So I originally, I got into real estate investing, mainly multifamily. My dad had been a multifamily investor or has been a multifamily investor since 1984. So we grew up in a small town in Connecticut, and my first investments were up in Connecticut. And after I graduated college, I bought my first building, which was a three family. And now they call it house hacking, but we didn't have cool names like that back then. And it was something that we just were like, oh, well, we try to you have your roommates and friends and everything pay rent and stuff. And it worked out. I'm actually selling it right now, but it was pretty neat. And then a couple of years later, bought another three family like a block away, and then bought a 5 unit and kind of grew from there. And that's really how we started investing in real estate, and self-managed for 6 years from 2006 to 2012. And that was quite a learning lesson. My dad had always self-managed before, and he had people that he hired on full time to do that. So it was a little different on his end versus us, which were much more hands-on. And after that, I moved to Florida in 2012 and had a professional third-party manager for the first time in my life, manage those properties, which was a fantastic experience, something that my father had never done. He always avoided third-party management and kind of set up his own management kind of group, I guess you would say. And when we got down to Florida, we really started focusing on larger stuff and started syndicating. And we've been syndicating properties in the Southeast mainly. The majority of our units are in Florida, and we have some other units that are in Georgia as well, which is another market that we really focus on. So really, the Southeast, I guess you would say, is overall like a lot of people are down here because of the growth.
I love it, man. So you said you've been really doing this since 2006, started really with your father, kind of watching what he was doing. And as you kind of built your own portfolio, self-managed for the first 6 years, moved to Florida, said, you know what, let's get third-party management. I like this way more than all the work I was doing self-managing. And then you've now expanded into syndication and growing your business there. Take me back to the self-managing business, right? That's always a tough way to go at it, but a great way, right? I think being hands-on, learning the business, the ins and outs, and really managing it yourself, it's a great way to learn, but obviously a lot of work. Talk to me about kind of that time frame. What are some of the key lessons you learned being hands-on, and what are some of the advantages you think you gained from being a hands-on active owner?
Everything inside and out of those properties. I mean, I'm in every hallway every week. I know everything. This is just one of the things that you can manage your property so well. And we were like, we had an office near. All of our properties were in like literally at less than a half-mile radius. So you could walk between them, and we did often. And that was something that made it so simple. So if you're ever buying property, I wouldn't say we strategically did it. I don't think we were that smart back then, but I would suggest people to do that if you're going to self-manage and have some sort of plan of how you're going to get to third-party management, being like the goal. You know what I mean? So, talk to third-party managers, know, hey, when I get to this many units, I want you to take over, or how it works. Maybe they'll work some deal with you initially and you don't have to do it. But 6 years was a little too long, but you learn. I think I could have done shorter. And then you can spend more time on generating money for more down payments. But you learn so much from self-managing and owning property versus any, kind of other avenue, let's say, whether it's a mentor program, they're very good too, or like all the YouTube videos or everything out there. I mean, this is very helpful, but nothing is going to take the place of actually collecting rent, dealing with a non-paying tenant, dealing with attorneys, dealing with contractors that don't show up, all the kind of fun stuff that goes on when you're doing it. But once you get a rhythm and hey, I got this really good handyman, and I give him a list of stuff every 2 weeks and he comes and fixes it. And I've got this over here, and I've got this, and I got someone to mow a lawn, and I got all this stuff going on. And now it can work that it's not that onerous of a project. You know what I mean? And you kind of get back then we didn't even have the rent all done online and stuff, how it's done now. And all these things that now are taken for granted, and you can do it. I mean, back when I had given over management back in 2012, I remember the hardest part of the month was just collecting rent. And I'm not saying I wasn't getting paid. It was just getting money orders in, people paid in cash. I had no system in place. I had a system where people paid, but it was not systemized. And my brother and I had a small office because I owned another property with him together. And we had a small office, and people would show up sometimes. Sometimes we weren't there trying to pay rent. So it was, it was kind of a mess, and having the third party management allowed us to really grow our other business that we had at the time and focused on, buying more property and stuff like that. So, but I would always say, like, if you're younger and you don't mind living in a multifamily property, you'll learn right off the bat on how to do it. And, just make sure you start building out your team. You start bringing out a good handyman, you start building out different people to do little projects around your place. I'm trying to, do as little as possible really yourself, other than kind of manage it. And it's hard in the beginning because, the first time you need a plumber and you're like, oh my God, I have to do this myself, or I'm paying, like today, who knows, $200 to do something small. But if you find the right handyman, then it's like, oh, it's $35, you know what I mean? Here. And you can do it. It's just, it takes time to build that network, but the network's gold. It's the same thing as when you get that property manager. People always say, well, I'm paying this guy 7, 6, 8%, 5% to collect rent. Well, no, I mean, if they're a really good property manager, you're paying them for their decades of experience, hopefully that they have. You're paying them for their crew that they have that's coming out, that's doing work on your property for $25, $30 an hour, whatever it is, right? Whatever they're charging you per hour that you can't find, you know what I mean? You can't find yourself reliably, right? And then also you're getting deals on all the licensed services as well. Right. You're not, as I say, calling and getting yellow page pricing, right? Somebody's going to come out and, change some light switches and they're charging you $120, $150 an hour. Whereas you just have, hey, I got a handyman that does that. It doesn't have to be licensed. It's this amount of money. And then also with the city, if you have issues with the city, it could be a number of things. That's where, hey, I know the person down there, I've known them for 25 years, or, you know what I mean? Or this person here owns this property, like everybody knows each other, and that's what you're using. And I remember the first property or second property I was buying, we had delays on the mortgage, and my mortgage broker knew the seller of the property. And like they had done, somebody owed somebody a favor or whatever it was. And the guy was like, listen, this is going to close. Just got to give like an extra week or so. No problem. You know what I mean? And that's the thing about having people, that mortgage broker probably saved the deal from me and keeping this seller from just like going crazy. You know what I mean? And that's something that you pay, you're working with people, and it's not just getting a mortgage. It's also, hey, I'm paying you for the contacts of being in this area for so long and working with other investors in this area or whatever it might be. And so it's just kind of, there's a lot more things that people provide, services that they provide letter than just, what they're saying, you know what I mean? Or what you see on paper or what you get your report. And if you're not tapping into those, then you're missing out a vital part of what you're paying for these services.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things that jump out in what you said, right? So the first is like, yes, you are self-managing, but you weren't just doing it to control everything and to, be, cheap on the cost and just try to, make everything as profitable as possible for you. What you were really doing was saying, hey, I want to really understand all the moving pieces, and I want to put in people to help, whether that's a handyman, whether that's, different attorneys, whether that's a leasing agent, whatever it is. I want to know what's going on, but then bring in people that can help me step back and then scale this business accordingly. And I think that's really important because a lot of people who go into self-management, they never really have a plan to pull themselves out of that. They just do it all themselves, and they get stuck basically having another job. And if you can go in to learn, but then extract yourself out of it, now you actually have familiarity of what's going on, what the process should be. You have contacts, you have relationships, and it's easier to scale that way. And I think the flip side of that is if you come in and you just hire property management from the jump, maybe you don't know those intricacies, maybe you don't build those relationships, maybe you don't get those connections. But share a little bit more from your standpoint, for the person who's looking to just hire property management from the jump, what are some of those blind spots they may be missing if they don't get in and be more active from the beginning?
One thing, just going back there, John, I wasn't as smart in the beginning and finding people to do stuff. That was something later on in my 6 years of self-managing that I started. I can find someone to mow my lawn, and I kind of feel silly talking about this now and doing it, but I think a lot of landlords get caught in that because they're worrying about the bottom line. They're worrying about this, they're worrying about that, but they're not worrying about the return on time, which is, as I think as everybody gets older, they realize that that's something that you don't get back. And the engine of real estate, and as we say, rental real estate, it's passive, but everything else needs management. And so you have this great income stream that's passive if done correctly, but everything else needs to be managed along with it. But if you have a high paying job, or you have a high paying business, or you're making money, put third party management right in. You know what I mean? If you're younger, you're single, and you want to buy a place or something, just buy something and house hack it and learn from the ins of it. Because after a year or two of that, and don't give up, after a year or two of that, of fixing all your issues and stuff like that, I mean, you're going to be more seasoned than the majority of people out there. You know what I mean? And you'll know exactly what needs to be fixed. It will work. It's just that it can be very frustrating. There's going to be many months where you make no money. There's going to be many months where you lose money, but the education you're learning, but you're also, paying down your debt and stuff like that. I find with finding real estate, management companies, I've only done them by referrals. And so with anything, and I always keep names of sellers that sold me properties that were investors, and they might have flipped something to me. They might have, wholesale something to me. They might have semi, maybe what do they call hotel kind of something to you, where they do a little bit of work and sell to you. So you just keep these people's names. They have networks and they'll help you. I can text people I bought properties from, 15 years ago, and they will respond within probably the same day, within 24 hours. And I say, hey, I need an insurance person. Who would you recommend? I need this. I have an issue with this. And they'll tell you quickly, what it is. And when you're in that town, that city, and you run into these people at Home Depot or Lowe's or at the plumbing, heating, warehouse, stuff like this. This is where you can touch base with them, and what's selling, and people will reach out to you and say, listen, I just got this property. I have too many other properties that are foreclosing now, blah, blah, blah. And if you have it all on referrals and you're utilizing people you've done work with or worked with previously, I think that's the best way of doing it. And find out who they're using and find out who they would recommend, and make sure that the referrals you're getting are for people that are in your similar situation. So don't ask some, don't go to an A-class apartment complex and say they have 300 units and say, hey, who do you use for management here? And they're going to say, oh, ABC management. That's like a regional man. You want to go to you have a 3-family property. You want to go find some guy that has 4 of them and has them managed, and hey, who do you use for this? And they go, well, we use this, and this other guy I know has a little bigger properties and he uses this. And then you reach out to them, and then you've cut out so much fat. And now you just have to really go through and interview 2 people and really go through everything of how their program works. But really, if you look online trying to find multifamily or good commercial management companies, you can't even find them. All you'll find is real estate agents that are, hey, it's 10% for your condo, in Florida, that you don't even live there, and we'll manage it for you. We don't really do multifamily. We have 1 duplex. These are things you don't want to hear. You know what I mean? You want people that are well-versed in the property classes that you're in, the areas you're in. And I know you'll hear from a lot of people that say, oh, you don't want management companies that own stuff here. I want management companies that are in the neighborhood all the time. I don't care if they have stuff there. It doesn't matter. They know they're going to drive by my property every day, or someone on their team's going to drive by. They know the area. They know the tenant clientele. They know how to deal with them. They know how they've been successful. They know what they haven't been. Before you buy, you can also bring them. You're buying your next property. You can bring it to the property manager and say, hey, would you buy this? You know what I mean? What issues are here? And they'll review it. And that's one of the things. And they'll even inspect the property for you. And we've done that a number of times, where they'll walk it. They'll have 2 people or so walk with you, walk the doors, walk all the properties, and they'll just tell you, listen, this could be an issue here. This could be an issue here. And they'll figure out exactly how much it's going to cost to renovate the units, and they'll figure out everything. So I think referral based, and then utilize the people that you're getting referrals from for everything, because management doesn't do just management. You know what I mean? You can utilize them for a lot of things, and your lender too. Use your lender. If you're not using your lender, if you're just using them to get a loan, like your mortgage broker, use them for sending over, hey, this is the property I'm looking at. And they'll go, yeah, this is fine, but I have someone else that did something here, and we can get you financed, but this is expensive for this area, or this is going to be the problem, or this is going to be issue. And if you're utilizing them beforehand, you can save a lot of time. And if they know you're serious, they're investing now into the relationship, their time, because they know that they're going to get these commissions on stuff you close. So if you utilize all these people in more of a capacity than what they advertise, then I think that's the best way. And finding them is referral.
Yeah, Charles, a great insight right there on really focusing on the referrals, especially if you are, starting out, you're house hacking, or, you're hiring third party management, or you're somehow, not going to be as active. You're working with other people to kind of come in and help. Focus on referrals. Get those referrals for property management, get those referrals for maintenance. Build your team out, and building relationships is a great way to scale starting out, and then leverage those referrals, right? I mean, if you got some good brokers, you have some good property management companies, well, they typically tend to know other people who do good work. So ask them who they work with, who do other people work with. And I love the point you made about making sure that the people you're getting referrals from have a similar type of asset. So don't go ask the person or 200 unit apartment building who the property management is when you have a duplex. Make sure that you are looking at apples to apples. And I'll add that make sure it's a similar type of asset too, because if it's a class A high-end luxury apartment or even duplex, but you've got a C class, workforce housing style apartment building or duplex, you don't want the same management company because they may not treat it the same way. They may not know the intricacies of, how to rent to workforce housing or manage, cash crunch situations versus how to appeal to maybe that luxury class A type resident. So you definitely want to make sure you are trying to get as close to apples as you can when it comes to who you're going to hire to work with.
Yeah. And also on that class A, the biggest problems they have is someone parking their Tesla on someone else's reserve spot. And on the class C, they're like, this guy's changing oil in the front yard. You know what I mean? Like, what do I do here? This guy's like rotating tires. So it's just, these are issues and they have to be well-versed on how to deal with them. And they have to know that. And you want to make sure that they've done it before. And you want to just pay to plug into their system. You know what I mean? Hey, I'm going to plug in with these 15 units. They're right where you are. It makes it easy for you. Like, it's simple. You've got this program you've been doing for 20 something years. And that's how I found it. They have a good system in place. And it's just really what you want to do. So make sure you have that and have that planned out first. I wish I had planned out a management company prior. I really had no idea. Like most people, they're buying property and they're like, oh, I'll just buy some property. I'm making some money and I'll buy some more property. But I wish I had much more strategic from the beginning of what's the 5-year plan? What's the 10-year plan? And when am I going to get rid of me doing all of this and bring in a third party? And when are the price breaks with them so I can hit them? And I know that that's when I can start saving money. You know what I mean?
At what point do you hit the price breaks where it is feasible to turn over your self-managed portfolio to a third-party company?
I mean, it just, if you have people that buy a single family house and pretty normal, it's 10%, which is crazy. And you won't make any money. The management company is the only one that's going to make money on that type of property. You're just kind of doing it just so you can build some equity and maybe you move into it later down the road if you're retiring or something like this. People would do from the Northeast to Florida, let's say. But as you get going, you start putting a few units in there. I mean, I would figure out exactly where those breaks are. Sometimes they're at 10 units. Sometimes they're at 15 units. Sometimes they're at 35 units. And not everything is a perfect. We've had ones, we got into management one time and they were charging us 4%. And they're like, listen, we cut you a deal on this and we started adding in more units. I think we added another 150 units into it within another year. And that kept everything fine. And they kind of believed with us. What happened was we're closing on 2 properties. One fell out and they're like, listen, we'll keep the same pricing, but this is much less. And it was good business. You know what I mean? And we still use them today. And that's for properties that we have in Tampa. But the thing that was that it's just, I would find out what your goal is. So then you can plug it in when you have an idea and you say, listen, if I bring you 20 units, what can we do on pricing? And they go, well, it'll be 5% or 6%. You know what I mean? At 35 units, we'll go to 7%, whatever it is, you know what I mean? However, they're figuring it out. And if you know that going in, and you also know it's really apples to apples, there's so many other fees that go with it too. So I think it's very rudimentary to just a percentage, right? Which was what most people talk about, the percentage. Well, what am I paying for handyman? Am I paying $25 or $35 an hour for handyman? What am I paying? It's completely, it's just, you have to keep everything apples to apples when you're comparing. Where's your office located? Do you have properties nearby? Am I controlling a bank account? Are you signing on it? Am I going to get banks? I'm the main person and you're an additional signer on this bank account, right? So I can access the money whenever I want, if need be. I can clear it out if I need to, if I'm going somewhere else before I tell you. All this kind of stuff is very important. And it's important to kind of have that all planned out initially and then speak to people not through their referrals. You want to speak to people that have done business with them that possibly you can find out. And then I talk the same thing I've had before with other like hard money lenders and stuff. And I talk to other investors, have you used them? Like, oh yeah, but this fee here, he just charges this crazy fee in the beginning and this or that. And if you just tell him like on the second deal, he'll waive it and you never charge me again. And then you kind of like, okay, like this is how this guy works, right? Or this is how this company works. And now if you know the intricacies of it starting out, then it's like, all right, now I can plan myself going forward. And then you have numbers for yourself. But tapping into finding good people for doing it through the property manager, I mean, that's the whole thing. But also, if you have good contacts from before, they should honor those as well. And they'll tell you, hey, if I have a problem with the plumber, we'll call this guy. Okay, if this guy doesn't like pick up or something, then call your guy, right? But, and then they should have these lists and like, hey, I call this guy and he's not like around. All right, it's fine. Just, I appreciate that. Please call this guy. And then you're like, hey, this is the guy that does my lawn. I got a great deal on him, so just do it and write checks to him. You know what I mean? Or however it is. And then if that person fizzles out, then you use the property managers. But you can have a lot of these people put together for you. And actively buying an area, if you're continually buying an area where you have a management company, you're going to continually find new people doing things, right? And you're like, okay, now I have a HVAC person, like a backup one. Okay. Or have this or that, or, you know what I mean? And that's very important. I have another GC for doing some value adds. And now you can just provide this to your manager and say, hey, if there's ever like large turns, have this guy do it. And then also when you're doing these value add situations, projects, you're usually, as the owner, as the asset manager, you're going to be managing most of that yourself, or you should be. You know what I mean? You should have your hand in that because the property manager is going to charge you more. And that's something, it's not like a long-term project. These should be, a week, 2 weeks top to do every one of these units. And you should manage that to make sure the costs come in and that then you hand it off. Hey, here's done unit, hand it off to the management company. They have their leasing person come out and rents it for you. And that should be kind of how it is. It goes on your regular lease. And so you have your hand in there and it's kind of like, you keep your nose in, but your hands out after it gets ready. You know what I mean? And just kind of overseeing how everything goes. And I think that's the best way of doing it, where you're just checking in on stuff. Hey, what was this for? And can I get copies of bills? And that's having that management relationship and then having them take care of more and more stuff. And hey, if it's $500, I'd give me a call. And now it's say, if it's $1,000, give me a call. And now you're like really stepping back. Because most of the time, hey, it's a hot water heater. Listen, you got to change a hot water heater if it explodes, right? You don't have to call me. You don't have to listen to me. You know what I mean? Just go to the plumbing place, grab one, have it installed, and then just call me the day after, right? Or whatever. Yeah. I mean, so just having this relationship and being on the same page with your manager is so important, because the manager is the most important person in the whole thing. The person that talks to tenants and actually is on site probably multiple times a week is the most important person of the whole investment process.
Yeah, they're the face of the entire investment. So really important there. Hey, Charles, we talked a lot about, how to kind of work with property managers, how to build on that relationship while still kind of maintaining some control in regards to the maintenance, how all that works, the plumbers, the list of vendors that you use. For some of our listeners, they're like, you know what, that sounds like a lot. I just want to put my money to work. Maybe I'll invest passively and let you two figure out how you actually control these deals. What are some things that we should be looking at if you are looking to invest passively?
You're going to be looking I would also look at, you're also obviously looking at the operator, and you're looking at the whole team of what it is. So if you're contacting the syndication is an operator or a co-operator, someone in the general partnership, what are they handling? And then what is the management company that you're working with? And the management company is something that I look more and more at. And I love looking, it's like usually in the first 2 or 3 pages or 4 pages of the operating memorandum that gets sent out to you as you're looking at a new investment. And it'll tell you about the property management, like, oh, it's got 20,000 units here and they've got them here. And this is our 4th complex with them. And you're like, this is fantastic. This is exactly what I want, where you know this inside and out. It's a proven person. I don't want to hear someone, hey, it's the first time we're using this management company and we're hoping they're great, because you're like, oh my God, this has just got issues written all over it, unless you're very lucky. You know what I mean? I've gotten lucky on first property managers, but you've had to change them after a while sometimes too. So it's something where, and you talk to some people that have gone through, I imagine you have, John, spoken to people that have owned property and they've gone through multiple managers. And I mean, it's not easy switching over managers. So the manager is number one I look at. And then also the track record of the general partnership, the GP group, and seeing exactly what is their what's their track record, what's their track record in this area, why do we like this area, and if you have good management, if you're buying in an area that's growing, population, jobs with declining crime over like the last 20 years, if you anywhere in that those scenarios are going the right way, you should work out well. I mean, that's just kind of how it is. And if the market's going up, you have to also realize too that every time you buy, you're buying at the top of the market, which is not what you hear from a lot of operators, but it is what it is. You know what I mean? 2016, you bought at the top of the market, right? In 2018, you bought at the top of the market. 2022, you're buying at the top of the market. And it's just something you have to make peace with. But you have to make sure those numbers work. And also, then the last thing too is know what the actual strategy is. Is this something that needs light value add and we're going to hold it for long term? Great. We'll make sure they have long term debt on it. Is it a short term, more aggressive, like your typical value add strategy? And they have, bridge, 3 years, one, so 5 years pretty much of debt on this property. Great. Then you know that they have to be really turning units fast and growing value as soon as possible. So if it sells or if it needs to be refinanced at the end of that, you can do that. And I think finding out, making sure that debt matches what the business plan is, and really whatever their value add is, you kind of want to make sure you have twice as much debt. You know what I mean? Time frame. So if the value add is going to take 24 months, great. I want to have like 4-5 years on that debt term. And then I know exactly that if there's any issues, we have time to build all the value. We have time to let it season, and we have time to refinance it or sell it, no matter what it is. And it's much easier to finance larger complexes. So if you are investing into a 100-unit complex, you're like, well, I could just buy this 5-unit, right? But there's going to be very limited people that are going to finance that 5-unit for you. You'll get a couple local banks and credit unions. But then when you go to them and you find out if we're in a pullback that their now loan to value is 55, not 75, that's going to be a problem. Whereas everybody and their mother wants to finance a 100-unit complex that's $10 million. You know what I mean? It's just a much easier thing. It's like calling for quotes on landscaping. What do you own? A duplex, and the phone goes down. I own a 100-unit complex. There's like 8 people in front of your door, like, telling you, giving you quotes, because it's a huge contract. It's much easier with the larger properties. So you have to take that into consideration too. There's a lot of pros when investing into larger properties, passively in most cases, versus investing in smaller properties, let alone the whole return on time, which is a whole nother conversation of how powerful it is.
Yeah, Charles, great insights right there. I want to replay a couple of things you said. One, you talked about making sure that you pay attention to the operators. What's the GP's track record? Who is the property management company? Do they have experience working with them? And just making sure that they have that experience to go out there and execute the business plan. Second thing you talked about was really understanding the debt, or I should say the deal structure. What's the business plan? What are they looking to do? And does the debt match that deal structure? If it's intended to be a light value add, they're not going to do very much to the property, then make sure they have longer term debt in place. If it's going to be a more aggressive, heavy value add play, where they're doing a lot of renovation and putting a lot of money into those units, then you probably want to have more of a bridge loan or something that has more flexible terms so you can exit that without a big prepayment penalty. So great insights right there on things to look for, just making sure the business plan, the strategy, the operators, all of it makes sense. So as you're looking at the opportunity, it all matches up and there will be a good exit in sight for a deal like that. I know you also host the Global Investors Podcast. Tell me a little bit more about, the show. What kind of information do listeners get? Because I know you take a little bit of a different angle than what many other real estate podcasts do.
Yeah, so what we do at Global Investors Podcast, for years, as I mentioned earlier, I had another business that I was full-time in, part-time in real estate, and it was a payment processing company. And my brother and I, we were partners in it now, and we would spend 2 months a year, really in Europe mainly, with partners and clients. And when you're over there and you're talking to people, just like any kind of business thing, Johnny, you go to a business meeting or something like this, and people ask you, hey, well, what else are you doing? Oh, I do real estate investing. I do this. Well, tell me how I can do that. And people would ask, because you'd hear about all the terms, are great financing over here for commercial properties, multifamily, et cetera. And how can I invest in that? Well, I have no idea, because you're not a U.S. citizen. I didn't know how to do it. So I started a podcast in 2019, and it really focused on working with U.S. operators, interviewing people that had invested in really all forms, not just multifamily, commercial, retail. I've had people with farmland on, anywhere, and kind of opening up and really having a twist where we are focusing on providing information to foreign investors so they're able to invest into US assets. And I've had people reach out to me that are active in deals and want to be active in deals. I've had some that are active, want to be passive. I have some that just want to be passive in deals. And everybody has different goals. And real estate, as you know, John, there's so many different ways of making money in real estate, especially like in just alone in investing, the different asset classes. We have value add, we have long-term investors, we have short-term investors. I mean, there's just a plethora of ways. And if you look on your ever buy a property, you look on the closing statement, you'll see all the people that got paid off your real estate deal. And it's good. I mean, there's so many, but these are all the people that we it's different. Every country is different. So someone coming from a foreign country and they want to invest here, it's going to be a little different, even if it's Canada coming here. So that's something that I really focus on. And and bring people on that work with foreign investors, bring on people that just are killing it here in the United States. John, you're a guest on it. And it was something that we were able, you can go through and you can talk to people about how they're making money in real estate and about how they work with foreign investors or how foreign investors can get involved with their business.
Yeah, man, I love it. We'll definitely make sure we link to that. If you want to learn more about the podcast, you can check out Charles's personal website, charlescarillo.com. And then if you want to learn more about investing with Charles, you can go to harborsidepartners.com. Charles, we're going to go to our round of insights. You ready?
Yes.
Give me a failure or an apparent failure that set you up for later success.
Buying in poor areas. And I realized quickly, even after my dad told me, I still bought in areas that were subpar. And I know going forward that I would only do it like C+ and above is what I'd say now. Areas, buying better areas, better appreciation, less headaches.
There you go. Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
I love Trello, and it can go on your desktop, it can go on your phone, and it's just my wife used to make fun of me, and now she uses it without telling me. But it's a fantastic asset, and they have free versions of it. It's just a fantastic thing for keeping all of your information in.
Give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
In the last week, I've gifted Rich Dad Poor Dad twice, which everybody hears that, so that's not really great. But 80/20 was another book, and it is there's a marketing one, but there's also the main one. So if you look at it, it's a quick read. I love the book, and it's not just for business; it's for all aspects of your life. And so if you're anything for anybody, particularly someone in sales or someone that's on commission or a business owner, it's a perfect book and a perfect concept that bleeds really into all parts of your life.
Give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
Every morning, goal review, just reviewing goals and then kind of looking at exactly where my year, 5-year, 10-year, even quarterly of what we're doing. So I kind of have an idea of what I'm doing every day, because you're just you don't want to go blind in. I used to do that, and about a year and a half ago, a mentor kind of told me, hey, have more of a weekly plan and more of a daily plan of where you're reviewing what you're doing all this for, and that has some personal and it has some business goals on there. It has a little bit of everything.
Give me your number one insight for multifamily investing.
I would say number one, I would say long-term debt. If you want to limit getting into any issues, get long-term debt. Second, I know you didn't ask me that, would have a reserve fund. And that's the two things.
I love it. Great ones there. All right, let's lighten the mood a little bit. You are out there in sunny Florida. Give me your favorite place to grab a bite to eat.
I like, there's a place out here called, in Delray Beach, we like going, called Rax, and it's like an oyster bar. It's pretty cool. And coming from New England, it's as close to New England as I can get in South Florida, which is an interesting concept.
There you go. Rax it is. So we'll make sure we link to that in our show notes. Listen, Charles, great information, man. I enjoyed the way you talked about being a hands-on owner as you started investing, all the benefits and perks you got from being hands-on, but also how you learn to leverage that to pull yourself out of it eventually, and then moving on to third-party management. You hit on the importance of property management, overseeing that, making sure you got the right people in the right places, getting referrals, and just really understanding how to grow your business. And if you are looking to be more passive, what to look for in both the operators as well as the deals and the deal structure on any opportunity you're looking for. Again, if you all want to learn a little bit more about Charles, you can check him out on his personal website, charlescarillo.com, or go to harborsidepartners.com for his business website. Charles, thank you again for coming on the show. We hope you have a good one, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks a lot, John. Have a great day.